Hello everyone, this is Shooter Fantasy. So before we start, I'm just going to say that I ended up having to move, so you might hear a little bit of echo in my microphone. Hopefully that doesn't become too annoying. But today I'm going to be doing an unscripted review of Spark 2, the Electric Jester, or Spark the Electric Jester 2, however that's structured. I originally wanted to do a quality assurance video, a follow-up quality assurance video on this game, since the game has actually been released since the last time I had looked at it. And as I was playing through the game, I was finding more and more that my initial complaints and things I pointed out were just not in the final game. So basically, the game remedied a lot of my initial issues, and overall I was just enjoying it. So let's just go through and talk about different aspects of the game. So the first thing we'll go through is the movement mechanics. If you are familiar with games, I guess the Sonic Adventure games, I've been told are kind of feel like this game, or that this game kind of feels like the Sonic Adventure games. The closest one I've ever played was Sonic Heroes, and Sonic Heroes was a game that I really liked as a kid and just, thoroughly enjoyed. And Spark the Electric Jester 2 kind of gives me those same vibes as far as movement goes, and just moving fast and everything goes. And it borrows a lot of mechanics from Sonic games, while also throwing its own spin on things. You got your basic ability to jump, as well as hold on to objects. You've got your basic springs, and all these zippers that launch your character forward. There's a lot of mechanics that this game borrows from Sonic games, and I would say as far as the movement goes, it's probably one of my favorite movement systems I've ever seen. I would say that if I were to compare this movement system to other Sonic games, Spark the Electric Jester 2 really knows what it wants to accomplish with the movement systems that it's borrowing, and I would say that it executes on them rather well. So we'll go into the combat, since that kind of flows into the movement a little bit. So you've got the ability to kind of dash, which is like an immediate boost, and I'd often use this to run away from enemies that are about to attack me or harm me. You can lock onto enemies and basically use something akin to a homing attack to destroy them, although this homing attack does not work on all enemies. Some enemies are impervious to it, and for those enemies you have to actually use either your character's fists, or you can actually collect these different outfits that are scattered around the level, and each outfit will kind of change your combat style. So you might have an outfit that makes you have a hammer. Reminds me kind of Amy's hammer a little bit, but you can smash enemies with your hammer and get close and personal. You can have a sword that can be used for close range combat, but also you can use it for far away combat. If let's say you're low on health and you want to eat away at an enemy's health without taking too much damage. The only caveat is that your long range attacks don't do as much damage as getting up close and personal. And overall, all these different outfits will just change how your character fights enemies. And you can have up to 4 outfits that you can swap between, so you can kind of cycle them all. I'm not sure if I managed to get or try out every outfit in the game as I played through it, but I will say that the ability to pick outfits, find outfits, and just swap between them is something that helps to keep the combat and gameplay fresh. And now, before I leave the subject of combat, I should probably also talk about the boss fights. So, boss battles in this game were pretty interesting and fun to go through. Usually it's a mix of having to block the boss's attacks, getting out of range of really wide range attacks on some of the enemies, and overall just trying to stay out of their range of hitting you and then sneaking in your shots after deflecting them with one of your blocks. Now, if you're not very good at timing blocks, you might have a bit of a challenge defeating these bosses, but even though these bosses were able to kill me a few times, I think after like 5 or 7 deaths I was able to get through. I don't think I got killed by every boss, but there were a few bosses that had the upper hand on me on a few attempts. But yeah, not too much I want to say about the bosses, in fear that I might spoil some of the surprises that are kept by them, but yeah, I found the bosses to be rather fun to go through. I did fight them on medium difficulty, so I'm sure if I played in a harder difficulty they would have even greater challenge. But I will say that the boss combat feels solid. The next thing I would like to address about this game is the soundtrack. Just about every track fits the level, sounds great, and feels right at home and makes me feel like I'm playing a Sonic game even though I'm not playing a Sonic game. The soundtrack is just as high energy and gives me the exact same vibes as any other Sonic game. Sonic games, in my opinion, have some of the best soundtracks I've heard, and just sometimes don't have the gameplay to match up with it, but this game, great soundtrack that's about on par with the Sonic game. So if you like the music in Sonic games, you'll love the music in this game, and in my opinion, the gameplay in this game just feels right at home with the music. So, not too much more I want to say about that, but I would say every track is just really well done. Whoever Lake Pepper got to do the music, or I guess people got to do the music, they all outdid themselves. So, level design. Level design is something that I didn't really find too much issue with. It's got your fast sections, it's got platforming sections, and as you go further through the game, the levels kind of get a little crazier as far as structure goes. It kind of got to the point where there's times where I would go through a level and I wasn't sure if I was actually going through the level properly. Like sometimes it felt like I was going off the beaten path and completing the level in a way I shouldn't be completing. But then you find things like collectibles and stuff that are hidden in these places that you'd otherwise think you're not supposed to be in, and you kind of realize that the designer, or Lake Pepper, the person who made the game, is kind of intending for you to complete the level how you want. There is a main path for completing the level in a certain intended way, but you are not required to beat the level in the way that is initially laid out. You can basically get to the end of the level in any way you see fit. And there are paths that do look intentional. There are multiple pathways that do look like they were intended and are intentional, but there were instances where I'd fall off or I'd land on like a beam or something, and there'd just be like something hidden there. And almost as if the game designer realized, hey, you know, I'm able to get to this location I maybe shouldn't be in, but why should I restrict it? I'll let the player go there, and I'll just hide some stuff there, and I'll reward the people who can or just exploring every nook and cranny in my levels. And I feel like that could add some more replay value to the game. One of the main things I tried doing was collecting artwork throughout the game, and I don't think I got all of it, but anytime I saw like a floppy disk hidden on a place that might be a little challenging to get to, I would try to get over there. So I'm kind of conflicted on what I want to say about the level design. I enjoyed it, and I feel like there's a lot of thought put into it. And overall, like visually, these levels also look very pretty too. It's just that when navigating them, sometimes places where you would expect to have a death barrier or have an invisible wall, the game designer has allowed you to just break the bounds a bit intentionally. So it's kind of cool. I'm not sure if that's a pro or a con, but I'd say it's a feature, I guess. So next thing we'll get to is the story. So the story isn't anything to write home about. It's enough to tie the levels together and push the player through the game. But it's not likely it's going to win any Oscars, but this game isn't trying to be an Oscar-winning story. It's trying to just be something that's fun to play. And the story is decent enough that if I was 12 years old, I would probably enjoy the story. But as I was playing through it, I was kind of voicing the characters because I was recording a different video, a quality assurance video. And I was turning more into like a playthrough, and then when I got to the end of recording, turns out my audio software crashed. I lost all my dialogue as I played the game. So as much as I'd love to have like my reactions and stuff in a video while playing that game, it doesn't look like I can. But one of the characters just reminded me of like just a 11 or 12-year-old child who feels really entitled, just the way they present themselves and speak and the way they act. But overall, the story was serviceable, kind of short, but for a game that's been created from the ground up by one developer, I gotta say that this game as a whole is rather well put together. I enjoyed it, and it would be nice to see Lake Leopard get a game studio or something. It'd be awesome if Sega actually contracted him to maybe make an official Sonic game. He seems to know what he's doing, and knowing just how hard game development is as one person, if you had a whole team, if he's able to accomplish something like this game as just himself, imagine a game project where he could have the budget to kind of just dream bigger, have more expansive levels, have a longer story, make everything bigger, better. If he had the budget and a team of people, I'm sure he could make one of the most definitive Sonic games that isn't technically a Sonic game. Because this game sparked to the Electric Jester, or sparked the Electric Jester 2, however you want to say that title. Him working on it as just one person, he's basically made the Sonic Adventure formula better, and I found the experience enjoyable. So that's basically everything I've got to say about the game, and I would implore you guys to check it out. It's a shame that I don't have a very wide reach when it comes to being able to endorse games and whatnot, but it would be nice to see either this game get as big as the Sonic games, or this IP get as big as the Sonic games and be direct competition, or to see Lake Leopard picked up by Sega to maybe conceptualize and make a Sonic game that everyone can rave about. Because overall, this game seems to fulfill what I've always wanted in a Sonic game. So, if you like this video, feel free to like it. If you didn't, dislike it. But if you want to keep up with my future content, feel free to subscribe and click the bell notification icon. And with that all said, I'll see you guys next video, or I guess live stream. I sometimes do live streams, but I'll see you guys next time.